Before this season, the chances that D'Angelo Russell and Karl Anthony Towns would link up seem to be slim. The reason for this is that both players have long-term contracts and are young all-star level talent, which of course meant that a major trade would need to take place in order for them to join the same team. And even headed into the trade deadline, there were still talks that D'Angelo Russell would end up with the New York Knicks, but as we all know, a D'Angelo Russell to the Minnesota Timberwolves trade has happened, and so we have a lot to talk about. Because jumping into this, one of the most interesting parts about this trade is that D'Angelo Russell and Karl Anthony Towns are close to best friends off the court, and before this season started, both also appeared on the cover of Slam magazine along with Devin Booker, a man who they are also close friends with. And in the Slam magazine interview, D'Angelo Russell made some major news when he stated, quote, "When we're all on the same team, I ain't gonna tell you which team because I don't know, we're gonna do this again." So yes, in this Slam magazine interview, D'Angelo Russell predicted that Karl Anthony Towns, D'Lo, and Devin Booker would all team up at some point in the future, and now 2/3 of these players are on the same team. And again, at the time this seemed unlikely. All three of D'Angelo Russell, Karl Anthony Towns, and Devin Booker are in long-term contracts, which meant their teams would have to willingly part with them and also trade them to the same team. However, as it turns out, not even 4 months after D'Angelo Russell made this bold statement, he is now on the same team as Cat, which means we have to ask the question, is Devin Booker next? And this also leads us to the question, is there even a realistic possibility that Devin Booker could eventually be traded to the Timberwolves? Now, this does get a little complicated because, as I said before, Devin Booker is in a long-term contract, and in July of 2018, he signed a 5-year, $158 million contract extension. That means that Devin does not become an unrestricted free agent until the summer of 2024. And so that also means that the first option for these three stars to team up would be for Devin Booker to wait until he is a free agent. That would be over 4 years from now, however, and if these three players are going to play together, I just don't see them waiting 4 years. I do want to say though, it could happen. Booker would be 27 at the time, Russell would be 28, and Cat would also be 28. So all three players would be teaming up in their primes. However, I think it is much more realistic that Devin Booker is going to eventually demand a trade out of Phoenix. Because while a few years ago, a trade demand like this might have seemed unrealistic, it is clear that the NBA landscape has changed. Players seem to now have more power to steer the direction of their careers. Just look at Paul George, who somehow ended up on the Clippers, or Anthony Davis, who ended up on the Lakers, and you can see that right now, players seem to have more power than they ever have before. Now, in terms of this power, some have criticized players, stating that because they have signed long-term contract extensions, these players have no real reason to complain and instead should just play out their contracts on whatever team they are on. My counter to this is that these are human beings, these are competitors. If these players feel that their front office just is simply not getting the job done, I don't really blame them for wanting out. That is certainly the case when we look at the Phoenix Suns, as they have never made the playoffs while Devin Booker has been there. In fact, they have overall been terrible, and although the franchise is a little bit better this season, it is obvious that the Suns still have plenty of problems. And eventually, as we've seen with the case of Anthony Davis, these problems can prove to just be too much and eventually lead to a big-time trade demand. And looking back to the summer of 2018 here, Jared Dudley actually provided us with a very telling quote, stating he, meaning Devin Booker, has 3 years of us having losing bottom top 5 worst teams in the NBA. After he signs his contract, that's when I think he'll be even more vocal. He has already started because his game is all-star ready. When you're that young and you're all-star ready and you're putting your work and your time in, you now want the team to catch up with your skill. And as for Devin Booker himself, in April of 2018, Booker was very vocal with his desire to win, stating, "I'm done with not making the playoffs. I'm serious. This is probably my last year ever not making the playoffs. If that's putting pressure on myself, I'm going to take this summer and work that hard so it doesn't happen again. With that in mind, as we all know, the Suns were terrible last season and did not make the playoffs, and this year they are terrible again and currently have a 20-31 record and are definitely not on pace to make the playoffs. Because of this, it would come to me as no surprise to see Devin Booker demand a trade, and because the Timberwolves still have their first round pick this season, a pick that is definitely going to be valuable as the Timberwolves themselves are horrible, along with the Nets first round pick and young assets in Josh Okogie, there is a very real possibility, in my opinion, that Minnesota can gather the assets needed so that if Devin Booker does demand a trade, Minnesota could be right there waiting to give the Suns enough assets to make a deal work. And that, of course, is the secret behind this trade here, because D'Angelo Russell headed to the Timberwolves could mean a lot more for the NBA in the coming years. If Cat, D'Lo, and Book are able to team up, they definitely will provide the Western Conference with a very real, legitimate contender for years to come. As for now, though, let's focus on the current Timberwolves and D'Angelo Russell, because on the court right now, statistically and playstyle wise, Cat and D'Lo are a very intriguing combination. Because first off, D'Angelo's size and versatility at the point guard position gives Minnesota's offense a dynamic that Karl Anthony Towns has not yet seen during his time on the Timberwolves. Because on top of having more scoring ability than Andrew Wiggins, D'Angelo also is a far better playmaker than Wiggins, and on top of this, Russell's three-point shooting ability in the last 2 seasons, he is shooting 37% from 3, far exceeds Andrew Wiggins, as in the last 2 years, Wiggins is shooting just 33% from 3. This is very important because as a team, the Minnesota Timberwolves are currently shooting just 32.5% from 3, which is the worst of any team in the entire NBA. So when we take into consideration that Karl Anthony Towns is an elite three-point shooter for a big man, as he is shooting over 40% from 3 over the last 3 seasons, it is obvious that the rest of Cat's team has been atrocious from 3, and so D'Angelo Russell is really going to help here. And because D'Lo has the ability to create his own shot and score, this is going to open up the floor even more, which means that other players on the Minnesota Timberwolves roster are going to get more open shots and more easy baskets in general. And unlike Andrew Wiggins, whose game seems to have stagnated, D'Lo has shown consistent improvement over time and even made the All-Star game just last season. And looking at this season, even though the Warriors have been disgustingly bad with a 12-40 record, D'Angelo's efficiency has not dipped despite not having the ideal pieces around him, and Russell has even drastically improved his ability to drive to the rim and draw fouls, as he is currently attempting a career-high 4.4 free throws per game and is shooting 78.5% from the line. And finishing things off here, when we look at the stats of D'Angelo Russell and Karl Anthony Towns combined, we again find that Cat is finally getting a fellow star that he desperately needs. Because this season, D'Angelo Russell has a 4.8 offensive box score plus minus, which is good for 12th in the entire NBA currently, and when you take into consideration that Karl Anthony Towns ranks 6th in the entire league in the same category with a 5.9 offensive box score plus minus, this means that suddenly Minnesota has one of the most explosive offensive duos in the entire league. Cat and D'Lo combined for an 11.5 rating here, and in comparison, LeBron James and Anthony Davis combined for just a 9.9, which means when you combine the chemistry between D'Angelo Russell and Karl Anthony Towns headed into this trade, as again, the two are very good friends, if I were a Minnesota Timberwolves fan, I would be very optimistic about this trade. And if I was a Phoenix Suns fan, I would begin to get worried, because I do think there is a very real possibility that Devin Booker demands a trade after not making the playoffs this season, and I also think there is a very real possibility that he ends up in Minnesota. And so there you have it, guys. Thank you for watching this video. If you did enjoy it, make sure to leave a like. It helps out a ton. Also, if you're new to this channel, make sure to subscribe for more videos like this. Currently, I'm posting 3 to 4 to 5 basketball videos a week on this channel, so you want to subscribe and turn notifications on so you don't miss a video. And if you're already subscribed to the channel, thank you so much. You're awesome. We all know it. And as always, have an awesome day, and cue that music. By the way, if you're still here while the music is cued, here are 2 videos I think you are going to love watching. All you have to do is just click on either one of them on the screen right here. And other than that, guys, again, have a great day and peace.